Hi, this is Eternal King bringing you another LOR video today. So I want to talk about the Riot news announcement. Um, First, again, the layoffs, but also the shifting focus on PvP. So you may guess by the name of my channel, Eternal King, that I think that the legacy format, the legacy competitive format of LOR is the strongest. It is the most stable, it is the most sustainable, and it is the most diverse and dynamic. Now, with the shelving of that format, we got introduced to standard rotation. So far, only one rotation took place. Got rid of most of the legacy cards that made the game great, and legacy spells, and that was the new business model that Riot was attempting to utilize. We just found out that this attempt at a new PvP card format and the business model that would arise around it failed. So, removing Ezreal from the game, again, there's so many champions that you can think of that were soft pulled from the game. Removing Braum from the game. And again, sometimes it's not just the champions as well, it's also their entire packages. I'm fairly certain that you can't run, a Tom Kench healing deck in standard. So again, sometimes the champions get soft pulled from the game, even though their inclusion is still there. Removing Lee Sin from the game. So removing all of these sort of legacy champions, removing Hecarim, or again, having Hecarim be much stronger in Eternal. All of these changes that were supposed to improve the quality of the game based on the pro scene and what the competitive players said actually helped end the life cycle of this game much faster. So, we were confirmed by Riot in 2024 that there are massive layoffs from the team and that they were unable to find a sustainable business model with the competitive scene of this game. When you're failing to find a sustainable business model with the competitive scene of your game, splitting that competitive scene into two distinct formats is the worst thing you can do, especially because one of the formats was only soft supported. There was an assumption, I think, by many players that Eternal Ladder would be available all year long. That never happened, whether it was lack of resources or what have you. So again, Legacy for, three quarters of the year was essentially a dead format, which sucks. I was, more willing to let that be the case if it turned out the standard was successful. We're finding out the standard is actually killing the game. So instead, since they've tried the one format approach, which again I believe was mildly successful, it was the height of success for this game, was the one format approach of Eternal. And they've tried the two format approach. Now they're going to try the PvE only approach. So I haven't touched Path of Champions in all the years this game has existed, but their play rates seem to indicate that Path of Champions is more successful than the two format PvP option they currently have, which sucks. Again, that's not something that I want to be saying. That I don't want to stand here as Eternal King and tell you, I told you so. Standard was going to kill LOR, and pro players are wrong, and you shouldn't listen to them ever about anything. But that's literally what's happening here. The proof is in the pudding, as they say. The first indicator, I think, that this game was going downhill from a PvP perspective was Mobalytics. So Mobalytics could no longer sustain stat distributions on decks because the play rates were so low. And then you have Swim leaving the game. That was pretty bad. And then you had Majin try to take up the reins and basically say, okay, Standard is going to fix LOR. But again, the play rates were so low that it was impossible to know how strong a deck was in Internal versus Standard. And then even then, in terms of Standard itself, it was hard to get proper play rates on things. So it just turned out the Standard wasn't a successful format, period, full stop, and that dividing these, the number of players that was remaining in this game between two formats was the worst thing you could do. I want to play Trundle, I want to play my Trundle ramp decks, right? And ramp was never a thing in Standard, and I just had to kind of live with that. Why? Why would you talk about like Hearthstone, and again, I'm not a big Hearthstone guy, but I'm assuming that like Druid never stopped ramping in Hearthstone over the duration of that game. But they got rid of Trundle, the big ramp champion in Freljord, thanks to rotation. Like, that's just dumb, right? They got rid of Yasuo, the stun champion, and then didn't replace it with anything. Like, that's just dumb. They removed Twisted Fate, the card draw champion. Like, that's just dumb. Like, I can't really put it any other way. Like, of course that would divide the player base, and of course that would lead to a decrease in players, because, you know, a lot of players don't want to play competitive card piles. I don't want to play a 3-champion split between Elder Dragon, Galio, and Morgana, and then a bunch of just aggressive units, and then call that a deck. You know, I want to play deep, right? Which, again, deep is better in Eternal, generally speaking. Not to say that it's amazing. You know, I want to play Ahiri. Ahiri, they keep trying to make poor Ahiri work in Standard. And, like, it's, you know, you want to play Ahiri Kennen, I would recommend playing it in Eternal if you're dedicated to that style of deck. Annie does better in Eternal. You know, all of these decks do better in Eternal. Even newly released champions like Nilla, Nilla Jana, or Nilla TF, or Nilla Jana TF, you know, 3-way split, or however you want to run that deck, it performs better in Eternal. The only problem is that Eternal isn't a supported format most of the time. So it wasn't, you know, it's no surprise that a lot of players are just like, well, you know, forget it. I'm just going to grind Path of Champions until Eternal Ladder gets released. Like, why wouldn't you do that? You don't get to play the game your way on Ladder, so just play PvE, and that's what we're seeing. So this doesn't surprise me. Like, it's not, and one of the things that frustrated me about reading the post is that, like, there was very little acknowledgement of failure or a mistake that was made. So they said that, okay, we've tried everything. We tried 1 format, we tried 2 format. Now we're gonna do PvE only. And it's like, no. The game was at its best when it was 1 format. Just go back to 1 format. Just eliminate Standard and all the resources required to rotate cards that you don't have staff to support, and just have it be a 1 format only all year long, and just roll all that back. And I'd be honestly, like, I think that's the only way forward for this game, because it ain't Path of Champions, that's for sure. Let's be real here. Alright, that's the news. Eternal King signing out.